All right, everybody, we'll begin in another minute. There are people still sneaking in. We have 50 in the house. Let's give them a minute to join and then we'll get started. All right, hello, everyone. Wave your flag. It's another good evening, and here I'm again with the second session of MEG 2. And I'm pleased to meet you all once again for a second session. For those who did not or were not able to join my session yesterday, please, you need not worry because we really didn't deal with anything special. We just spent some time getting to know each other. I gave them a few resources that they can use to, learn or to dig deep into literature and theater. And of course, we may not be able to spend more time getting to know each other today, but then probably we can do it as and when we get time. All right, for those who have joined late, joined for the first time, I had told, I had taken a cautionary note yesterday, which I'd like to repeat. Any subject related questions, always welcome. Any technical, administrative, clerical questions, please route it to your study center or your, what do you call, regional center. So I had shared Dr. Prema's number yesterday just in case you want to contact somebody over the mobile because the landlines aren't being picked. You may contact Dr. Prema for further details on administrative details, especially regarding the video that is being recorded. I have no hold over that. So, yeah, sure, thank you. I was just thinking about that. It's just that I'd feel a little bit suffocated. Doesn't mind. Okay, so I was trying to tell you that you may contact the regional center for the recorded videos. They may upload it in the RC Cochin website. That's what I'm told. If not, you may please contact Dr. Prema and ask her about the alternatives. All right, I hope I'm more visible to you right now, and um, let's get started. We have 65 people in the house, quite a good deal to get started with. So, hello, everybody. Today, I had promised you that we'll get started with the paper British drama. And rather than straight away diving deep into the British aspects of theatre, I had told you that we'll discuss the inception and perhaps the evolution of theatre. And this is quite a poignant thing because when we speak about the beginnings of drama, it is actually quite a long story. We have to look back at an apparatus which would be quite convenient. I just don't get that. Hello. Am I audible to you? Today I'm using the same audio device that I used yesterday. Am I audible to you guys? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Somebody has posted in the chat box that they're not able to listen to me. All right. So please feel free to let me know if the volume goes down. From my side, I have ensured that the volume is full. So just in case there's a technical issue, we'll see to it. All right. So today I had promised to you that we'll discuss the evolution of drama in general. And before we get started, once again, I'd like to remind you that theater is something which cannot be taught in a video format. Cinema and drama are two entirely different forms. And just a second, somebody has messaged something. Any one or two in the group? All right, I do understand that. Yesterday, I was about to say that as well. It would be ideal if any one or two of you take the initiative and call Dr. Prema and club all the queries together. Because if everybody keeps calling her, there are close to 80, 90 people. It'll be a botheration for her. That's a very valid point. Thank you, Anju. So maybe Anju can do the mediator's role, and maybe you guys can contact Anju and through her. And if anyone else is ready to volunteer, you may do the mediatory job and contact with Dr. Prema regarding any queries that you have. And please make sure that you take valid queries rather than simply asking things for the sake of asking. And I think she can also sneak in at some point of time. She has the link. I think she'll be coming in a class or two for 5 or 10 minutes. And you can use that time also to raise your queries with Dr. Prem. All right. So speaking about the evolution of drama, I was trying to tell you that cinema and the drama are two entirely different media. And when you speak about these two formats, cinema has an entirely different aesthetics or setups altogether. For example, when you speak about cinema, I mean, when you relate memory to cinema, in cinema it becomes a technique called flashback. Whereas in theater, while you're performing live, it's not possible to have something like a flashback. So theater has its own devices to create a make believe of all these sorts. So I would like to take this excuse that the online class of MEG2 is certainly or will certainly be different from the offline classes of MEG2. In MEG2 classes, those who have been there before would agree that we have enacted, we have tried to do certain role plays, we have tried to build on soliloquies and so on and on, so it becomes more effective. Over the online mode, maybe all I can do is a little bit of mimicry and maybe show you some videos and give you a gist of it. But then within the limitations, I promise that I'll still try to make it as exciting as possible. Okay, so getting started with, please pay attention for these first 5 minutes because this is an apparatus that I'm going to introduce to you, which would be handy for you throughout your 2-year course. It's not only pertaining to drama, you take any genre. The apparatus that I'm going to bring in front of you is going to be extremely useful for you over these 2 years, especially when you study a paper like Literary Criticism and Theory, MEG5, next year. This apparatus is going to help you big time. Okay, so speaking about the evolution of theater, let's get started with the inception of theater, the beginning of drama. Yeah. So where can we trace the inception of drama? Where can we see the beginning of drama? Where did drama originate? As I told you, I do not prefer a 2-hour lecture trend. I would rather be so happy if you can unmute yourself and interact. This is more of an interactive discussing forum. So feel free to unmute yourself, engage in discussions. There are no right and wrong answers. We learn a lot collaboratively. So feel free to open up. So where did drama originate? I like the two words, Anish. I'll come back to that later. But if we can be geographically specific or periodically specific, where did drama originate?
Yes.
Yes, Eben, there is this apt answer where you could say uh, drama originated in Greece. And when we speak about Greece, a better terminology that can be associated not only with Greece, you may be sometimes a little bit startled if I say drama also existed somewhat simultaneously along with Greece in India. Maybe you may be slightly surprised. But then, yes, in India also theater did exist in its own forms. So did in Rome. So this Greco-Roman Indian civilizations, when we look back at that and when we try to figure out the inception stage, we can categorically or conveniently label them as classical theater. Yeah, we can divide a tree, an apparatus that I'm making. We can have a heading like classical theater, origin of theater. Then you can have something like classical theater. The same can be changed into varied forms: classical poetry, classical literary criticism, or classical, what do you call, classical poetry, classical drama. So, like that, you can add to that apparatus. Any genre would again date back to or root back to Greece. You speak about poetry, there are various types of poetry, like lyrics. The lyrics had its inception in Greece from the word lyre. Lyre, Lyre, is a musical instrument. So it dates back to Greece. You speak about any such genre, most of them, unless they are modern, like short story, novel, or cinema. Otherwise, all of those dates back to the BC century Greece. So, speaking about drama, theater originated in Greece. So, speaking about classical literary theory or classical theater, for that sake, you can conveniently divide them into Greek, Roman, and on the other end, Indian. Again, before doing that, you can conveniently have a bifurcated division: Western theater and Eastern theater. If you are studying poetry, Western poetry and Eastern poetry. If you are studying theory and criticism, Western literary criticism and Eastern literary criticism. So this West-East dichotomy existed ever since the inception. So while we discuss the inception or the origins of drama, it's ideal that we go back to the Western and we make this distinction: Western theater under Greek, Roman, and Eastern under, because we are Indians, our primary concerns rest there, under the Indian Sanskrit tradition and Indian theater. All right. So speaking about the classical literary tradition, speaking about the Western theater, we have to.
Sir, excuse me.
Yes,
Sir,
Christina.
വോയിസ് ഇത്തിരി ലോ ആണ്.
I really don't know. Where ആർക്കെങ്കിലും ലോ ആയിട്ട് ഫീൽ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടോ?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, I think Christina, maybe you have to check your audio system, because as I told you, I have almost ensured that today there won't be any scope of voice getting low. My speaker is
Okay, sir.
full and my headset is the same that I used yesterday. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
so yeah, no problem. So we have identified, to begin with, that the origin of theater, origin of drama, happened in Greece. So that's the first space with which we should begin our discussions. So theater or drama originated in Greece. So the next question is, how did drama originate in Greece, or what necessitated the origin of drama in Greece? If any of you are aware of that, most of you would have learned that during your undergraduate days. You would have had some paper or the other which would have told you why theaters or why dramas or plays were performed in Greece. So if anybody can open up, we can move on to the next part slowly. If anybody can unmute yourself and say why and how theater originated in Greece. Yeah, anybody?
To honor their god, they enacted plays.
Okay, to honor their god, they enacted plays. That's a good observation, Alita. To honor their god, do you remember the name of the god?
Sir, I think
Dion,
Yeah,
Diony,
yeah,
Osiris,
yeah, Dionysius. Dionysius is the name of that god. Dionysius or Dionysius or whatever you call. That's the name of that god, the deity. And what terminology do we associate with such acts? That is performing to please your deity. What do we call that in plain terms? Anything that is to please a religious deity. Any act may be called as a,
Offering ritual.
yeah, I would take the second word a lot. Ritual. So we call them ritualistic. So in Greece, if we trace back the origins of drama, we can see that what originated was actually what we realize today or call as. All right, I'm so sorry. There's some technical problem. Just give me a second. I think the captions got activated maybe. Wait just a second. All right. So what we call today, or what we recognize today as ritualistic drama, it's what originated in the ancient Greece. So what is ritualistic drama? When I speak about these technical terms, and when I speak about classical antiquity, and when I speak about Greek or Greco-Roman civilization, something that you need to realize is not only drama, even literary theory, criticism, or whatever you study under MEG, it becomes more useful and more attractive if you are able to relate it to your day-to-day life. Most of us are Malayalis. I know there are pan-Indian audience here, but most of us are Malayalis. If I may take the liberty to simplify the concept of ritualistic drama to you, മക്കളെ നമുക്ക് നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടില് we have things like തെയ്യം, തിറ, പടയണി, മുടിയേറ്റ്. ഇതിനെയൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ മലയാളത്തിൽ അനുഷ്ഠാന കലകൾ എന്ന് വിളിക്കും. ഈ അനുഷ്ഠാന കലയാണ് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ റിച്വലിസ്റ്റിക് എന്ന് വിളിക്കപ്പെടുന്നത്. It serves the same function. Whether we speak about Teyyam or Tira or Mudiyettu or Padayani, there is this ritualistic exercise of somebody feigning some disguise, enacting something, or playing something in order to please the deity. So such an enactment is termed as ritualistic. So when drama originated in ancient Greece, it was ritualistic in nature. And what was particular about being ritualistic? As you already know, ritualistic is in a way an attempt to please the deity. So in Greece, they had this god called Dionysius. What sort of a god was Dionysius? We have several gods in Hindu mythology in particular, each god for each different purposes. Yeah, you want to get something done, you have Ganapati. You want something else, you have Hanuman, or you have something else, you have Shiva or Vishnu, blah, blah, blah. We have plenty of gods for plenty of achievements. So what was Dionysius all about? If anybody remember that.
Wine, sir. Wine.
Is it wine? Can you be a bit more particular? He is renowned for two things. Two most important things that we cannot even, two things that we would always feel we need a lot.
I think fertility, sir.
Yeah, fertility is one thing that Dionysius stood for. Fertility and reproduction. No, it's not wealth, but it is in a way a key to wealth of a society. He was god of fertility. He was also god of cultivation. Yes, Satyendra. Yes, Satyendra. Very good, Satyendra. Yeah, he was god of fertility as well as cultivation. So for any society to flourish, these two are pivotal factors. As a society, as a group, as a culture, as a community, if you have to expand, agricultural produce, cultivation is significant because we need to eat in order to sustain. And if you have to grow, reproduction is a core thing, and reproductivity is a significant factor. So back then in Greece, Dionysius was a deity, and he was a popular deity, a deity on demand, because he held under him these two vested powers of fertility and agricultural produce. So because this guy's wrath could, put an end to an entire civilization, the people, their own beliefs or superstitions were rooted in pleasing Dionysius. We must also remember the historical fact where the Greeks were involved in years of Peloponnesian wars with Romans. So these within Greece and within the other countries, they were involved in a series of wars called the Peloponnesian Wars. So that also affected the Greek economy. And generally, the Greeks were moralists. They were believers. They laid stress on good values as an upright way of living. So such people, they laid a great significance to their god, to their deity, whose name is Dionysius. So in order to please Dionysius, every year, once, that's how festivals are held in India as well. You have Trishur Puram once a year, or you have, that Magare Valakku once a year, or Attikal Pongala once a year. So just like that, once a year, people from various parts of Greece used to assemble at Acropolis. and they used to conduct a ritual act, that is this performance of plays, and the performance of plays were like a drama festival. Those who have studied under colleges under MG University would be easily able to relate to this. MG University നമുക്ക് ഈ കോളേജ് യൂത്ത് ഫെസ്റ്റിവലിന് പുറമെ we have something called നാടകോത്സവങ്ങൾ. Yeah, that നാടകോത്സവം theater festival is exactly what used to happen in ancient Greece. So what is this Nadagolsam? What is this theater festival in Greece? Every year, once in a year, they used to assemble in the Acropolis, and the playwrights could come up with plays. It was a play competition as well. So playwrights could come up with plays, and the division goes like this. Each playwright is supposed to perform 4 plays. It will go on for days. It's not a one-day affair. So it will go on for days. Each playwright was supposed to perform 4 plays each. And the division is, of those 4, 3 plays must be tragedies and 1 must be comedy. So this division is a bit of a curious one. They have this clause that 3 tragedies and 1 comedy. Why so? Just in case you have not done your UG in literature, you may not be able to understand this, but those who have done BA in English literature might have come across theories of Aristotle. You may be familiar with words like catharsis. You may have heard his concepts of 3 unities of time, place, and action. Yeah. So these things stems from that. The Greeks, as I told you, were quite of a moralist kind, and they believed in the sort of a high value society, and they believed that tragedy is a superior art, and they considered comedy to be an inferior art. And because they considered comedy to be inferior, the stress or the emphasis was on tragedies. Just a second. All right, sorry guys. So I was trying to tell you that the Greek folks gave too much of emphasis to tragedy over comedy because they believed that tragedy is a superior or an exalted sort of an art. And they believed that tragedy, or a good tragedy to be specific, a good tragedy ensured catharsis, and that emotional purgation, which is catharsis, would purify and refine the citizens, and that would instill a sort of righteousness in the Greek folk. So that's the reason why they preferred tragedy over comedy. But because comedy was also a genre just for lighter humor and satire, 1 play was set apart for comedy. And well, I'm not part of the WhatsApp group. I had told you yesterday that I'd rather stay in the class, and you can mail me if you want to. I had shared my mail ID yesterday. I don't think I'm part of your WhatsApp group, but that doesn't matter. All right. So I was trying to tell you that the Greek folk, they conducted this annual theater festival to please Dionysius, and each playwright was supposed to perform 3 tragedies and 1 comedy. That's total of 4 plays, and they competed among each other. There were quite a few playwrights, popular playwrights in Greece. You may be familiar with some of them: Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and there is this playwright called Aristophanes. Please do double check the spellings because I'm typing the spellings random. I can go wrong with the spelling sometimes. Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and we have Aristophanes. These were the popular playwrights of uh, those times, the classical theatre. And the last of that, Aristophanes, he was a comedian. He did more of comic plays, and the other three were deeply rooted in tragedies. Speaking about the plot of the tragedy or the story of tragedy, because they were one of the earliest civilizations, they had a huge shortage for stories. They had a very few epics to look back to, like the Iliad and Odyssey, for instance. And because of that, they had shortage for stories. So more often than not, all the playwrights could be seen performing the same plays. For example, if you type Oedipus by Aeschylus, if you type Oedipus by Sophocles, you will definitely get a summary of both these plays. That is because they all play this, they all come up with the same play. Then you may ask me, what is the purpose of that? Even though they all perform the same plays, the difference was that the way they present the story may be different. The dialogues might be different. The sort of value or the takeaway that is there in the play would be different. The choric songs might be different. So even though the plot is same, for example, if you have studied or if you have learned Ulrich Ibsen's A Doll's House, it was a play written way back in the 19th century. The same plot can be seen in, say, a movie, in a Malayalam movie like How Old Are You, starring Manju Warrier. Or the same plot can be seen in a movie like The Great Indian Kitchen, directed by Geo Baby. Or take the case of Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. The same plot can be seen in Godfather, a Malayalam movie directed by Siddiq. The same plot can be seen in a movie called Annaim Rasool, starring Fahad Fasil. The same movie forms the story or the plot of Parnidhi Chopra's debut movie, Ishak Zadeh. The same movie forms the plot of that movie starring Ranveer Singh and Deepika Padukone. I just forgot the name of that movie. Yeah, Lahu Mulag Gaya, that song and all. Yeah, I forgot the name of the song. Yeah, so that movie,
Leela.
Ram Leela. So Ram Leela also takes immensely from the plot of Romeo and Juliet. So similarly, the same stories were enacted by these playwrights because there was shortage of tragedies. So they chose subjects from the Trojan War. So Helen is a play which has been written and directed by Sophocles. The same has been done by Aeschylus and Euripides. Similarly, Oedipus Rex, Oedipus at Colonus, Oedipus and blah blah blah. So there are plays written by these playwrights with different names, but the story or the essence remains the same. Similarly, when it comes to they've also experimented here and there at times. They have tried to work on the plot. They have tried to work on the conventions. They have tried to thwart whatever is there in a tradition. For example, one major essence of Greek theater is the chorus. When I say chorus, the group of people, the old men who would sing and dance and give a sort of a comic relief in Greek theater. That group is called chorus. And their songs are later also called as choric odes. And they would perform in front of the audience. And why old men? Why are old men chosen to represent the chorus? Because generally old men are considered to be wise men. They have seen it all. They know everything. Or they are qualified enough to advise somebody or to give suggestions. So right from the beginning, they do the role of a prophet or an oracle. They give hint as to what's going to happen in the play. Right when the play begins, they say that something bad is going to befall on Oedipus. They suggest that if he does this, he's going to be doomed forever. So in order to do these roles, we have a group of people called chorus. You may Google the strength. It varies from 7 to 14, I guess. I'm not so sure about the exact strength right now. You may Google that. But nonetheless, there are a particular group of people who sing and dance and who make an intervention in between the play to give a bit of a comic relief. And sometimes the playwrights have played with these conventions. For example, I think it's Sophocles who wrote a play called Medea, MEDEA. All right, I'll do that, Tanvi, no problem. So there is this play called Medea. Medea, I think it was written by Sophocles. It tells the story of a lady who's betrayed by her husband. The lady was once a queen of an island. Her two brothers were ruling that island. They had powers like the Indian Bali, Indian character Bali. Whoever comes to fight with them, they get the strength of that guy. So the main hero of that story, I think his name is Jason, if I remember correctly, Jason. So Jason goes to this island to conquer the island, and he sees that he cannot win over these two guys. Then he hoaxes Medea, uh, saying that he loves her, and he offers her the role of the princess in his kingdom. Falling for Jason's charm, she tips the secret to kill her brothers. Jason kills her brothers, marries her, takes her to his place, and she becomes the queen. No two ways about that. But as the play begins, we come to know that Jason is going to marry another lady with the same claim for the expansion of the kingdom. So, right from the beginning, we can see that Medea is upset because she's being cheated on. And right from the beginning of that play, we can see a biased chorus. Generally, choruses are supposed to be unbiased as per the Greek tradition. In fact, they serve the moral purpose that the Greeks crave for. Yeah, so they serve the moral purpose that the Greeks crave for. So, what happens in Medea is that right from the beginning of the play, the chorus is divided. Most of them are in the side of Medea. They comment that Medea has been cheated by Jason and something worse is awaiting Jason. And they take sides, they make prophecies, and even when there are situations where they could intervene, they do not do that. As the play moves towards the climax, Medea, unlike a stereotypical moral woman as per the Greek prejudices, Medea murders her own two children that she had with Jason, and she sends a gown stitched by her own hands to the fiance of Jason, and she had poisoned that gown. So wearing that gown, that fiance dies too, and Jason is left alone to die his death. So as per the Greek conventions, Medea should be doomed to death, but then by introducing something called Deus ex machina, which is called Hand of God, a character who's not there in the play until the end, all of a sudden comes in the climax and saves the character. So that happens. Medea is portrayed as the king, as the daughter of the sun god, and he comes in his chariot and saves her. That's how the play ends. So there are plays where these playwrights have experimented with form, with content, with structure, and a lot of things. There is this popular play called Antigone, again written by Sophocles and Aeschylus. There is this play called Antigone, which is about the duties of a sister. One brother is ruling the country, the other brother is standing against that brother claiming the throne, and that brother is killed by the king, and the body is prohibited to be given the last rituals, and the sister has to take a call, either the call of the nation or the call of a sister's duty. And what Antigone does leads to another tragedy. So there are plenty of such plays in Greece back then, which includes Helen or Oedipus or Antigone or Medea. There are plenty of such plays, tragedies written by these playwrights. Then there are also comedies. And when it comes to comedies, Aristophanes was regarded as the king of comedy. His plays like The Wasps, The Clouds, Lysistrata. Lysistrata is a play that's reread in modern days as a feminist play. Lysistrata is a play where during the Peloponnesian Wars, the soldiers go to war and they return only occasionally. And when they return either injured or they return because they have this craving to make out with their spouses. So they come back to have sex. And the people who are mostly affected by this instability are women. So Lysistrata assembles all the women in the Acropolis and asks them not to have sex with their husbands, no matter what, until they decide upon or they agree to stop war. It's a wonderful story, isn't it? These days we speak about the body politics and how body becomes a tool for women against the patriarchal majority. There are plenty of movies and theories built upon this notion. So in Lysistrata, we can see the inceptions of this. She claims that let's abstain from sex until our husbands decide to call the war off. And what ensues is hilarious comedy. They resort to all sort of methods, beginning from violence, rape threats, punishments, and finally, when these women do not budge, they end up pleasing, pleading, cajoling, and whatnot. So that's just an epic work that I would urge all of you to go back and have a look at. So speaking about Greek theater, this is how Greek theater originated. And before we proceed any further, I would also like to speak to you a little bit about deconstructing your myths about drama. When I say deconstructing your myths about drama, I specifically mean the moment I say drama, being Indians, most of you would have been exposed to only one type of drama. That drama is probably you are in your school or college auditorium. You are seated among a group of people, your own classmates perhaps, and sorry, there is this three-wall enclosed elevated podium in front of you, and there may be a fourth wall in the form of a curtain. And once the curtain is raised, characters come on stage and interact with each other through dialogues, sometimes through song and dance. True. So this is one sort of theater, perhaps the only sort of theater that you may be familiar with. But this, my dears, is not the only form of theater. Classically, when I speak about drama in Greece or the origins of drama in Greece, theater was not the theater that we just referred to. All the plays in Greek was written in verse form, verse. That is, they were poetical. And the costumes that the players had was quite heavy. They had a heavy mask, they had a heavily weighing costume and attire, and the scope of movement was pretty less. And back then, there was no drop curtain. It was an open stage, a large audience, an open-ended stadium-like structure, and there was no drop curtain. So because of all these things, the movements was limited. They were having a heavy costume and a mask, so they cannot move much. So basically, in Malayalam, we say Padyam Cholal. That's what used to happen. Two characters came on stage. They started reciting one verse after the other. You may remember Otan Tullal or Chakyar Kooth, something like that. They used to come to the stage with their heavy attire, and they used to utter these verses one after the other. So there is this telling and repartee and continuation and again repartying and so on and on and on, and rebuttal and so on and on and on. So that's how plays were enacted in the Greek times. So the aesthetics or the entire, what do you call, appreciation of that play would be different from what we have today. Today we may watch a movie, and when the hero or a heroine is undergoing agony, we may be shown the close-up shot of their face or their eyes and tears rolling down, and we may also look for our tissue to wipe our tears. So that's such an immersive experience. Back then, when I speak about Greek theater, it was not so. I'm just going to share my screen with you and show you a pic of Greek theater. Most of you would have seen this before, but just to give you a clarity, I'm going to share the pic of Greek theater with you. You may look at this image. So what happens here? There is a half proscenium. This is what we call this proscenium, a half arc like stage, and in the middle of it there is an elevated platform. In between that we have this Dionysius statue. In our temples we have these sort of statues, what we call as pradishta. Yeah. So similarly, there is a pradishta of Dionysius here, and we have an elevated platform where you can perform. You can see 2-3 doors here. It is through these doors that the characters make their entry and exit. And this is the only surviving picture of Greek theater. Most of them are lost. I'll come back to that later. But then this is how a Greek theater or a Greek stage looked like. This is a bit more clear picture. There are three entrances, and there is a semi arc, then there is this Dionysius installation, and the chorus used to stand here as well. This would be a better descriptive picture. There are certain terms used to it. You may or you may not by heart them, that's up to you. While I was an undergraduate learner, I had to by heart all these things. Nonetheless, you can see it here. Throne of Dionysius or the statue of Dionysius. You have the altar and you have the orchestra. Here the play is performed, a couple of entrances here and there. Then you have the chorus standing there, and on and on and on. So this is how a Greek theater looked like. Now coming to the major part, speaking about how and why these plays were written. I told you that it was already in the verse form. It was not in the prosaic way. It was written in lyrics. It was written in prose. It was like poetry, and it was recited loud. They used to sing that aloud so that the entire audience could listen to what is being said. And most importantly, and most importantly, most of the people in the audience knew the story. I had told you already that these stories are commonplace stories. They had a very huge shortage for novel stories. So everybody knew what is the story of Oedipus, or everybody knew what's the story of Antigone or Helen, or for that sake, Medea. And that's where dramatic irony comes into fore. You may all be familiar with the term dramatic irony. So, what is dramatic irony? When Oedipus kills his father and marries his mother, he's totally unaware of the fact that he has killed his father and he's marrying his mother, which would unfold in his own downfall. But as spectators, because they are familiar with the tale or with the myth of Oedipus or the legend of Oedipus, they know right from the beginning what's going to happen. He knows that now Oedipus is going to have a fight. He's going to kill his father. He's going to marry his mother. Later, he'll discover the truth and he'll pluck his two eyes out. So, despite knowing that, the audience would try to get involved in an immersive experience. They would be in shock when Oedipus kills his father. They would be they'd have a catharsis when the play reaches its climax. So that is called dramatic irony, another technical term that you need to be aware of. And it is because the stage is like this and the props and settings are limited that Aristotle calls for the three unities of time, place, and action. Because there is no possibility to change the costume. There is no possibility for somebody to stab somebody and die on stage, because there is no drop curtain for that person to go away. And because the Greeks were moralists, that's another thing. Uh, Bloodshed and violence never came on stage. They happened backstage and they were reported off on stage. That's how violence was treated mostly in Greek theater. Seldom would you go to a Greek theater and see two people fighting with a sword, because already the costumes are heavy. So there was no real enacting, as you may be familiar with the word enactment in the modern times. So back then, there was plenty of limitations to enact. And the Greek theater was, in that sense, handicapped. And that accounts for Aristotle calling for unity of time, place, and action. The story happens on a single day, preferably in a single place, which is probably the kingdom, probably, or the war place, or whatever it is. And the time is also a day, and the unit of time, place, and action. The action gets over within that sphere of time. There is not too much of scope for movement and action. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is an overview of Greek theater when we speak about the origins of drama. I won't go into detail as far as Roman theater and Indian theater is concerned. I'll give you reference materials if you want to go back and deal with it. But just like I said, Greek theater was ritualistic in nature. Indian theater was also ritualistic in nature. Take the case of Kalidasa. Take his plays like Meghaduta or Shakuntala or anything else. We had our own traditions to follow. So you may go back and refer to these things at a later point of time. But then my intention was to get started with Greek theater, to tell you that when you speak about classical theater, there's this Western and Western and Eastern theater, and European theater consisted of Greek and Roman theaters, and we had this Indian literary theater, and that's what I wanted to interact with you in the initial half. Now I'm going to play a video for you, a video that would simplify what we have discussed so far, and I'm sure that's quite self-revelatory because I have somewhat given you an overview of all these things. So I suppose this would give you a deep insight into what happened, and we'll come back and quickly switch to the British drama, its origins and features. And as much as we can also discuss the evolutionary part as well. So that's my intention for today. So I'm quickly moving on to, yeah, I'm quickly moving on to the screen share. It's a short video. We'll watch that and come back. This video is from Crash Course Theatre page. I had shared the link with you yesterday. Just in case you missed the class, don't worry, I'll share the link with you once again. Let's watch this and come back.
Hey there, I'm Mike Rignetta. This is Crash Course Theater, and today we're traveling to ancient Greece to uncover the origins of Western drama. Right, Dionysus? He's still hungover. My dude, this is your episode. You gotta get up. If we believe the ritualism theory from last episode, then eons of religious or quasi-religious rituals eventually birthed drama. But how? Well, it has to do a bunch with our grape-loving friend over here. By the 6th century BCE, Dionysus had become a very popular god in Greece, especially among the ladies. According to some maybe true, maybe not reports, women participated in a ritual where they'd run through the countryside, tear apart some animals, and then come home. It's fun, right? And if you want to know more about it, you can check out The Bacchae by Euripides. It is great. Whether or not that happened, we do have good evidence that in the 6th century BCE, some less wild rituals celebrating Dionysus spread through Greece. One of the most popular involved a procession from Eleutheria to Athens, where worshippers lofted a giant phallus and sang songs called dithyrambs in praise of you know who. And one theory about those dithyrambs actually is that eventually they evolved into theater, when singers started acting out the action instead of just singing it. Aristotle and his followers think that sooner or later a singer stepped out of the dithyramb chorus and started acting out individual characters. This actor was called Thespis. Like, actually, that was his name, and that's where we get the noun thespian. According to stories, Thespis learned to switch between characters, and to enhance the effect, he got the bright idea to use masks. This was Greek tragedy in its earliest form, one actor paired with a chorus. It still sounded a lot like a dithyramb, or like a bard reciting portions of epics as banquet entertainment, but the direct impersonation of a song's characters made it different. And it continued to develop, adding actors and architectural elements for about 150 years. Tragedy, by the way, derives from the Greek words for goat and song, which may have had to do with animal sacrifices that were made during the festivals, or it may just be another reference to satyrs. Theater eventually gets institutionalized in Athens. Late in the 6th century BCE, pre-democracy Athens was ruled by a tyrant named Pisistratus. Pisistratus came to power through violence, but once he was in charge, he wanted to unite and strengthen the city. He decided that festivals, particularly those in praise of Dionysus, would be a good way to get everyone on board. Because wine? So in the 530s BCE, he expanded one of the god's pre-existing spring festivals and turned Athens into City Dionysia, with a theater competition at its center. Now, this festival wasn't only about theater, it was also about reaffirming Athens as a source of pride and power. It lasted 5 or 6 days and included a lot of events. Military and political leaders poured out libations. Tribute from cities of the Athenian Empire was displayed on stage. Names of men who greatly benefited Athens were read out. Children of soldiers who had died in war and had now reached maturity were brought on stage. There were also dithyramb contests. The theater competition took place in an outdoor amphitheater in front of a crowd of about 14,000 spectators. That likely included the whole range of Athenian society, even women and slaves. But, of course, only male citizens could perform in the chorus or vote for best play. The contest was between 3 different playwrights. Each had to submit a tetralogy, a 4-part work. The first 3 parts were linked tragedies, and the 4th part was a satyr play, which was lewd and usually involved a lot of prop penises. In 486 BCE, a comedy competition was added. Once competing playwrights were chosen, they were matched with a prominent Athenian citizen who would bankroll the production. Our big spender was called the Choragus, and it was his job to assemble the chorus, hire the flute player, and buy the masks or any other set furniture like a bed or a throne. The playwright usually did the jobs that we now associate with director, composer, and set designer. Sometimes they even acted in their own work alongside other performers. There may have been up to 3 actors on stage, and then the chorus. Unfortunately, none of the music from these shows remains, but there are some painted vases that suggest what productions may have looked like. Fun fact, the chorus would sometimes dance. I wonder how hard it is to high kick in a toga. For a look at the theater structure itself, let's go to the thought bubble. The Theater of Dionysus was an outdoor amphitheater built into the Athenian hillside. You can still visit the ruins today. Its first incarnation might not have had seats, but eventually they were added, wood first and then stone. The seated section was known as the theatron, or seeing place. The chorus performed on a flat part called the orchestra, and in the center of the orchestra was the thymele, or altar. At some point, a dressing hut called a skene was also built, so that actors could change masks. With only 2 or 3 actors playing every role, you gotta change masks pretty often. There were several ways on and off stage, known as paradoi, including 2 side entrances so big choruses could march on and off when needed. There was also a place on top of the skene where an actor playing a god could appear and descend in a cart, which was called the God in the Machine, or the Deus Ex Machina. Maybe you're wondering, why might a playwright need a god to descend from the heavens? Well,
And that's where the god comes in the play Media. I had told you about Media. He makes an entry in a similar manner.
sometimes you write your way into a situation and you can't write yourself out. So it's pretty helpful to have Zeus or Apollo come on down and make everything right. All of the actors wore masks made of linen with hair attached, so they probably looked pretty frightening, especially the one of Oedipus with blood all around the eyes. Tragic actors also wore robes and platform shoes called cothurni, so just imagine a lot of big, sweeping gestures and trying not to trip. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Ugh. That thing is no less terrifying from the inside either. So, during the dithyramb contest, after each playwright presented his tetralogy, a group of 10 randomly chosen citizens would select the winner, who was honored with an ivy wreath, sacrificial animals, and a big banquet. The Athenians took this contest very seriously, and if any funny business was suspected, there were lawsuits. Tragedy hit its golden age in 5th century Athens, first with the works of Aeschylus, then Sophocles and Euripides. Because papyrus disintegrates and invading hordes kept burning libraries, we don't have the plays that they wrote. Aeschylus wrote as many as 90 plays, but we have only 7. Sophocles wrote 120, but we have only 7. Of the 92 Euripides wrote, more than 7 at least this time. We have 19. Those 30-odd plays have had a huge impact, though. They're still very widely read. They matter to us now because they provide a template for most contemporary drama. But let's look for a second at how they mattered then. It's a huge deal to have 14,000 of your most prominent citizens hang out on a hillside watching plays when they could be doing their civic duty. But as it turns out, they were doing their civic duty. The leading citizens of Athens decided that it was important to get together and see plays that actively question the values and structures of the state. These plays are exploring what it means to be a part of a family and a nation, and what to do when divided loyalties creates conflict. They can teach you to be a better person and a better citizen by encouraging you to ask, through the dramatic action, what a good person is and what a good citizen does. Tragedy does something else too, at least according to Aristotle. He wrote the Poetics, one of the world's first works of literary criticism. And he had a theory about what made tragedy so important. And his theory was about catharsis, which literally means purgation. Aristotle writes that tragedy, through pity and fear, effects the proper purgation of these emotions. Now, a lot of scholars have spilled a lot of ink trying to explain what this means, so it's unlikely we are going to get to the bottom of it right here and now. But let me quickly offer one interpretation of catharsis. Let's try out the idea that tragedy, by exciting the emotions of pity and fear, becomes an outlet for those emotions. If we believe that pity and fear maybe aren't that helpful in a democracy, then we can argue that it's better to feel these things at a play, have an emotional catharsis, and then just get that stuff out of our systems and go back to being productive members of society. Like, imagine how productive all those people who've seen Les Mis hundreds of times must be. Or people who've seen thousands of episodes of General Hospital, for that matter. Next time, we're going to look more closely at Aristotle's theories and use them to discuss Aeschylus's Orestia, the only complete tragic trilogy we have. And then, finally, on to the satyrs and their phalluses. Thanks for watching, and curtain. Crash Course Theater.
All right, as a matter of fact, Orestia and Bacchae are two plays I missed out during my introductory session as well. And just while showing that video to you, I also recollected a couple of things that I missed out in the process as well, which is quite significant. Not only today, I was speaking to you about the apparatus. So even when you study a paper like literary criticism and theory, this is quite significant. Any Greek play that you study or that you read were initially written in Greek. So it was not written in English. And centuries later, if you're able to read it in English, it means it has undergone different kinds of translations. For example, you may all be familiar with a work called Poetics by Aristotle. Poetics was originally written in Greek, but then most of the parts of that work was lost. Even today, like he said, most of the plays written by these playwrights are lost. We have not recovered them. All that survives are 6 or 7 plays. And even them are not in full swing. They are in parts, and they are translated, and something like gets lost as well. So Aristotle's Poetics, we have only some surviving parts. And in 8th century AD, it was translated into Arabic. And it is from the Arabic that we have whatever English translations which are available right now about poetics. So there is a huge emphasis on tragedy and a very little emphasis on comedy. And that's not only because the Greek people gave significance to tragedy, but also the probable hint that the parts on comedy written by Aristotle might have been lost due to various reasons of across the times. So it would have been lost in calamities or floods or earthquakes or whatever it is. So the surviving part has not been discovered yet. So we have very little amount of insights into his views on comedy. So the same applies to the plays as well. Of course, I'll be sharing all these links with you. Don't worry about that. I know you would love these videos because they are really good. And I think that's how it should be like, in fact. Because at the end of the day, learning must happen. It's not about how you learn, but how much do you remember. If they help you to remember something, well and good. Well, not all the videos of Crash Course are error free. There are plenty of errors in those videos, but then as a starting point, you can depend on them. There are plenty of good insights too. So the link I shared just now is the video that I played right now. You may also look at this video where he discusses Aristotle's concepts of tragedy. Also, I'm sharing another link where they discuss the Roman theater. While discussing Roman theater, you must also remember we have two concepts called middle comedy and new comedy. In Roman theater, comedy gained a lot of prominence thanks to the support that Alexander the Great gave to the theatricians or the theater artists. So, um, in Roman theater, we have this middle comedy and new comedy. And the middle comedy, we don't know much about that because there is no surviving works. Just like I told you right now, not much works have survived. Perhaps none of them have survived. But in new comedy, you have, say, someone like Menander, someone you can go back and Google if you want to. His comic plays become the central attraction of the new comedy. So I've shared the Roman link with you as well. I'm also sharing a link on the Indian ancient Sanskrit theatre, again from Crash Course Group. But I'd like to caution you not to limit your readings to Crash Course alone, because there are plenty of better insights as far as Indian theatre and its origins are concerned. You may find that in EPG Pathshala site as well. If you look at the course called Indian Literature or Indian theatre, Indian writing in English, perhaps, you will come across a lot of comparative Indian drama. I'm sorry, there's a paper called Comparative Indian Drama in EPG Pathshala. So if at all you go through that page, you may be able to have better insights into the origins of Indian theatre. I'm sharing that link to you as with you as well. So yeah, so that's what would serve as a starting point. We'll quickly move on to the second part. And before we move on to the second part, I'd like to give you a couple of minutes break. Not that you need to go somewhere. Of course, you can go have a break, drink a glass of water or something. But at the same time, please use those 2 minutes to add your details in the following sheet. I have shared the link with you in the chat box. Please fill the sheet with your name and details. Unlike yesterday, please don't delete the captions name, study center, enrollment number, mobile number. So please start typing from the second option onwards. Please leave the titles to be there. And please make sure you fill in all the particulars. Nobody is gonna misbehave with you just because you type your mobile number. You can easily block that person using Truecaller, or you can give a complaint in the cyber cell. This is more of a network sharing, and we are a family. Please feel free to trust each other and have your particulars there. Also, because they can add you to their WhatsApp groups. So please be there. No problem, Tanvi. In the meanwhile, while you fill out those particulars, I have no problem in sharing those links to you once again. I'm posting it right here once more. I hope that helps. And just in case you missed the attendance marking link, I've shared that once again as well. Please go there, fill in your details, and we'll continue. We'll resume in another couple of minutes. Please hurry up. I can see that there are close to 90 people in the house. Only close to 50 people have marked the attendance. Please make sure that you mark your attendance without fail. Maybe just another minute to fill in the details. Others may also help Rajini and Shanti to fill in the details in the sheet. Maybe they are unable to do it from their device. Please help them in filling the details. All right, no problems. Others may fill in their particulars. It's okay. Don't force them to open that. Maybe they are not tech savvy. That's totally okay. Let's help them by filling their names there. That'll do. Let's continue from where we left because we don't have more time to wait for everybody to get this done. I would like to once again repeat to all of you who are here, please make sure that when you log on to this Google Meet link, please make sure you come to the class with your name. Don't use fictitious name or short names and so on. I can still so many people. Hello, light to enlarge. Are you trying to say something? Like to enlarge, I request you to log out and log in using your proper name. We do not appreciate names which are not your names. So make sure you log in with your names. I can understand a repetition. For example, yesterday we had a candidate called Sharon Sharon. I can understand that. That's okay. But otherwise, don't have names like Akukuku, Achumichu. I mean, that's definitely not you. I still remember last time while I was teaching literary criticism and theory, I had His Highness Barack Obama attending my class. The only problem there is that when I let him in, he spoke in a tongue that's not befitting to Barack Obama, and I had to remove him from the meeting. And the danger of me removing you from the meeting is that you will not be able to log in back. Such is the Google policy. If a candidate is removed from a meeting link, he or she cannot log in no matter what he does. So please make sure that I don't have to remove you. Light to enlightenment or whatever it is. If you're hearing me, please log out. Do not make me remove you. We would like to have you as you are in our class. Light to enlighten, first call, second call, third call, 2 seconds for your well being. And because there is no response, I'm forced to remove you. Others, I'm not going too deep to your name today, but from tomorrow onwards, please make sure that you log in using your name. Achilles Sri, this goes to you as well. You have been AJJ yesterday and today. Please make sure that when you log in with your name, proper name and particulars. No abbreviations. Yeah, that'll do. Do it tomorrow, not today. That's okay. Tomorrow, when you log in, please make sure that you log in with your proper name. Thank you. All right, so let's continue from where we left. So speaking about the classical literary theory and drama, we have had a sort of overview. Thank you, Anju, for that. Thank you so much for helping them out. Um, Now, quickly, let's jump to our area of interest, British drama, inception of British drama. So, before we jump to that, when I began today's class, I began by giving you an apparatus. And I told you that this apparatus could be used at any particular point of time. You can use this apparatus to discuss poetry, discuss the inception of theory, and so on. So similarly, there is another interesting apparatus I'd like to share with you. With no offense to the Britishers, when it comes to the Britishers, we can observe, if we look at any evolutionary possibilities, we can see that they were never original. They were all copycats, and because of whatever the reason is, they have adapted everything to their culture and assimilated everything to their culture rather than creating something on their own. You take the case of any genre, whether it's poetry or drama, or whether you take the case of, even if you look at the latest forms, as in short stories or cinema, they had inceptions in America. So the Britishers have taken it to their own sphere. So similarly, you can see that they have always been copycats. I'll give you a very simple example. This would be useful for you in MEG 1 and MEG 4. Of course, I'm teaching MEG 2, but in a couple of minutes, I can give you a very simple example of how unoriginal the Britishers have been. You may all be familiar with a poetic form called sonnet. You may all have come across sonnets of Edmund Spenser, William Shakespeare, and so on and on, even John Milton for that sake. So my first question is, where did the sonnets originate? I'm just trying to bring the discussion mode back. So where did the sonnets originate? Yes, Anish, you seem to be quite well read. Thank you. Sonnet originated as a form in Italy. And who's called as the father of sonnets? Who's credited with the inception or the invention of sonnets? He's also called as the father of humanism. Sonnet was a form invented by an Italian whose name is Petrarch. You may have heard his name. Yes, Anish, Petrarch. So Petrarch invented the sonnet form. And yeah, just a second. I'm sorry. No props. ഇപ്പൊ കേറിയ ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ഡ്രാമയുടെ ഒറിജിൻസ് കേൾക്കാം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നാളെ കേറിയാലും മതി. നാളെ ഡോക്ടർ ഫോസ്റ്റർ സർ. All right, so I was trying to tell you that sonnet was a form invented in Italy by Petrarch. And do any of you remember the form of Petrarchan sonnet? You may all have heard of Petrarchan sonnet. So what is the form of Petrarchan sonnet? Needless to say, sonnet is a poetic form which consists of 14 lines. Okay? So what is the division of Petrarchan sonnet? How is this 14 lines divided by Petrarch?
Two sets as such.
Yes, please.
In 2 parts.
8 lines.
In 2 parts, what is the division? Yeah, Anish, again, Anish has given the answer. 8 lines and 6 lines. And the division of 8 lines and 6 lines are technically called as octave and sestet. Anish has it for you in the chat box. Wonderful, Anish. So octave and sestet is the division that Petrarch used in writing sonnets. So way back in the 16th century, the sonnet form came to Britain. It was published as Tottel's Miscellany, and Wyatt and Earl of Surrey published a group of sonnets in Britain. Again, those sonnets were 14 lines of length, and because I've already told you, they are copycats, they don't know much to invent. Wyatt and Surrey followed the 8-6 division. So just like the sonnet of Petrarch, which was 8-6 division of 14 lines, when the Britishers copied the same format, they brought the 14-line sonnet to England in the 16th century. They had this octave sestet division. And after that, it took a while for that form to change. I give you 2 examples, Tottel's Miscellany and sonnets of Wyatt and Surrey. And later, the sonnet form underwent a drastic change. And most of the people, when I say this, unmute themselves and would eagerly say William Shakespeare and the Abba Abba scheme and its sestet, 3 quatrains and a couplet. And again, that's not a change that Shakespeare dared to make. The transition took place much before Shakespeare. And like Tanvi points out, you're spot on, Tanvi. Like Tanvi points out, that change began, that remarkable change or the daringness to change began with Edmund Spenser. Spenser wrote sonnets. He wrote perhaps all his poems for his love, for the one whom he married, epithalamine, prothalamine, and so on. So amongst that, he also wrote a group of sonnets. And he experimented with the Petrarchian form. And he divided the Petrarchian form into 3. 6-6-2. That is 2 sestets and a couplet. So Petrarch had an 8-4, a quatrain and a sestet format. In what is his name? Yeah, in Spenser's case, it became sestet, sestet, and a couplet. Again, a lot of people misunderstand that it's William Shakespeare who invented the couplet. It's not true. He perfected the couplet form. And who gave him the idea? It was Spenser. Because even Petrarch had not thought of couplet and its political functions. So Spenser wrote his sonnets in 6-6-2 format, and William Shakespeare was inspired by that, and he dared to again break it down into 4-4-4-2. We call it quatrains. So 3 quatrains and a couplet. This is what William Shakespeare dared to experiment with. And maybe sonnets somewhat reached the perfection with the Shakespearean form. He wrote 154 sonnets, and he had his own thematical divisions to it. You may go back and read. But the best part about Shakespearean sonnets is, needless to say, the closing 2 lines, the politics of the couplet. So similarly, when I speak about plays, we can see that there is a sort of repetition or similarity that can be seen with Western theatre or Greco-Roman theater when it comes to the Renaissance theater of Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare. So before speaking about William Shakespeare's theater or Christopher Marlowe's theater, speaking about the inception of theater in England, there are three terms that I would like to share with you. Again, these are terms that you may be familiar with, but the difference of these terms comes in today's class because I have already given you an overview of inception of world theater. I have made you realize that both in India as well as in Greece, theater originated as a ritualistic art form. I gave you parallels of Teyyam, Thira, Padayani, etc. in Kerala as ritualistic art forms. Theater did the same purpose in Greece. And when it went to Britain, initially, I won't dare to call it ritualistic, but it had a similar tinge, a similar flavor. We used to call them, I'm sorry, a second. Just a second. My throat is getting quite dry. All right. Yeah. So when we speak about the beginnings of theater in Britain, we can see a three division as in miracle plays, mystery plays, and morality plays. In England, we can see that that's how theater somewhat originated. We have miracle plays, which is also called as a saint's play, S-A-I-N-T apostrophe S. And it is, again, all these three are also can be clubbed under a single term called vernacular drama. That's how they used to be called back then. So vernacular drama, you have miracle, mystery, and morality plays. And miracle plays also called as saints drama. Saint in Malayalam, we say Punyavalan. Yeah. So legends of those Punyavalans, legends of those saints, the tales of those miracles performed by the saints. So miracle plays presented a real or fictitious account of the life, miracles, or martyrdom of a saint. It generally involved, even though I say it involved the life, miracles, and martyrdoms of a saint, it was mostly about the miracle part. How a saint, due to his magical powers and the blessings from the providence, was able to perform certain miracles and the impact that it had. I'm not sure if I should call it ritualistic, but then yes, this religious element was there. Then there was this thing called mystery plays. And the mystery plays usually represented biblical subjects developed from plays presented in the Latin by churchmen on church premises and depicted such subjects as creation, Adam and Eve, the murder of Abel, and the last judgment, and so on as plays. So they drew largely from biblical stories. And remember, when you say Bible, you get to you primarily attach the significance to the language Latin. It's again not English. So they were plays performed in a minuscule way in front of church, showing such biblical extracts. So that was adapted to the stage and performed as mystery plays. And that involved a lot of biblical stories. The story of Job and his children, the story of Adam and Eve, the last judgment, and so on and on and on. And last but not the least, in that list, we had something called morality plays. And they are, simply put, they are allegorical plays in which a protagonist is met by personifications of various moral attributes who try to prompt them to choose a good life over the one of evil. And they were popular, especially during the 15th and 16th centuries. And just in case you are not aware of the word allegory, allegory simply means name signifies the character. For example, somebody like wicked heart man. The moment you hear that word, you understand that that person is a bit cunning and crooked. You may have somebody like noble. The moment you hear the word, you feel that person is probably a gentleman. So the words would point towards the character of a person. And more often than not, especially if you have watched a movie like Life of Josuti in Malayalam, you can see that a sort of allegory is played there, wherein whenever Josuti is at a juncture, two angels appear in front of him, a good angel and a bad angel. He makes choices based on their charm, and he meets good or bad ends at varied points. So, in a similar way, the principal character is exposed to various vices and follies, characters with type names, and the characters choose or fight over one another. And eventually, because the plays are moralistic in nature, the characters end up being rich in moral or high in moral. They end up winning in the moral side. They learn their lessons. It's more like Gunabada Kapad. Yeah, they end up what do you call parivartanam? Yeah, what do you call it? Transformed. Yeah, they end up transformed. They undergo a sort of a transformation. So that's how morality plays were there. And also there was a collection of morality plays which are called as macro plays back then. You can go back and Google that if you want to. There is this concept of every man, and every man is a type. And while learning a paper like British drama, you must be also able to distinguish between the two terms type and individual. Type and individual. An individual is an individual. I am an individual. You can look at me as an individual, and you can feel that I am prone to my own attributes. But what is a type? A type, if for example, if you think that I have an attribute, and most of the teachers are like me, say suppose I'm quite angry and I have an authoritative tone, and I try to subdue you down, and you feel that generally teachers are like this, then I become a type. I became typified of that attribute of a teacher. All right. So where was I? Yeah. So you must be aware of these two distinctions, individual and type. And there are novels and plays where a character becomes more of an individual than a type, or vice versa. You take the case of Tom Jones. Is he an individual or a type? It's a question that you need to ponder as you learn a paper like MEG 3. There are plenty of interesting things that you would come across. Yeah, interludes are also there. I just missed it in the way. Yeah, you can also speak about interludes along with miracle, mystery, and morality plays. And the significance of interludes cannot be overlooked either. It was more of a musical composition, and again served a religious purpose. You may read a bit more on that. If you go to Poplowski's books, there are detailed descriptions and pictorial depictions about these things. I had shared the link with you yesterday of bok.org. Yeah, I did miss a few books to you yesterday. Thanks for reminding me that, Edwin. I just forgot to mention that yesterday. Yeah. b-ok.org is a book downloading server. I told you about that yesterday. So there are certain books that you can refer to. Yesterday I told you about Bloom's Critical Edition series. Bloom's is Harold Bloom, who is no longer with us. There's a Bloom's Critical Edition series on literally everything, from Hamlet to novels. He's written extensively. You can depend on Bloom's Critical Edition series. Then there is this history of English literature books. History of English literature. It might be helpful to you in two ways. One, in order to appreciate a novel or a play, you have to be aware of the historical context, and the series would help you with that. You have books written by Edward Albert, Arthur Compton Rickett, Emily Lua, and so on and on and on. In that series falls this guy called Paul Poplowski. The name of his book is English Literature in Context. And one major difference that I find in Poplowski is that in the book you can see a lot of timelines, pictorial depictions, portrayals, as well as summary of major works and all. If you're preparing for UGC NET, for instance, Poplowski will be of immense use to you. Edward Albert is for people who have a good command over English. Otherwise, for people who are insomniacs. If you think you can't sleep at regular intervals, and if you think whatever you do, it doesn't help, listening to music or whatever you do doesn't help you sleep, just open Edward Albert, read 2 pages. I can bet you would doze off. So Edward Albert is one such guy, just in case you don't have that command over English. There are also substandard books from people like Pramod Nair, who's the head Department of English, University of Hyderabad. I call him substandard because he writes 10 books a year, which is humanly impossible. When you go through those books, yeah, they are simplified in that sense. They'll help beginners, but otherwise they are trash. So if you want to, you can depend on Pramod Nair, you can depend on B.R. Prasad, you can depend on R. Nagarajan, I think, R. Nagarajan, and so on and on. And there are plenty of Indian writers that you can depend on for history of English language and literature. And some of these are available in BOK. You can download them for free in PDF format. And as and when you please like, you can go through that. All right, so that somewhat takes us to the next page. Before that, again, for those who joined late, I'm sharing the attendance marking link with you. You may please go there and mark your attendance. Please mark your particulars. Make sure you don't miss out on anything. All right. So again, continuing from where we left, when it comes to Britain, we can see that there were such transformation or such adaptations made on the stage as well. Suppose these, when we speak about the 16th century drama, or what may be popularly titled as the Renaissance English drama, before William Shakespeare, we have to discuss the stalwart called Christopher Marlowe. So what is the significance of Christopher Marlowe? Christopher Marlowe is one of the popular Renaissance playwrights during the Elizabethan era. And unlike most of the major playwrights of that times, Marlowe did not receive university education. He was not a university wit. So was William Shakespeare, for that sake. So there were these people who were called university wits, and they wrote plays which were in that sense of a rigid or jargonized language is what they used. People like John Lilly, George Peele, Thomas Lodge, Thomas Middleton, and so on were all university wits. There were also people like Robert Greene, Thomas Nash. Yeah, I'm sorry, Christopher Marlowe was also part of it. He was part of the Cambridge School. But then there were people like Thomas Kidd and William Shakespeare who were not university wits, which means they did not receive the proper college education. I'm sorry that I said Christopher Marlowe was not one. He was one, and that's why there is another argument that comes about William Shakespeare, which I'll discuss with you later. Okay, so these were the university wits, and as far as Christopher Marlowe was concerned, even though he adapted a lot from the popular tales, he was a genius. He played with the forms, he played with language, and he was an inborn genius. Doubtless, he had it in him to enthrall the masses. And when it comes to the principal play that we'll be taking up for discussion tomorrow, Dr. Faustus, we can see shades of the trinity that's the trilogy of miracle, mystery, and morality plays in that. We can see that we are, in a way, it is allegorical. When we speak about Dr. Faustus, the morality play element can be seen as surfacing. We have this good-bad dichotomy. There is this good angel, evil angel. Mephistopheles coming in. And for your assignment, you had a question. Would you call the character of Dr. Faustus heroic? And give reasons for your answer. So tomorrow we'll not only be discussing that, but we'll also be discussing the play in Entreaty, and to discuss what led Christopher Marlowe to come up with a play like that, and what are the implications for us when we learn a play like Dr. Faustus. And we must also remember that Dr. Faustus, to be simply put, is a typical Renaissance man. The age of Elizabeth, the Elizabethan era, is considered to be the golden period of England. The Renaissance that has been hailed at is in all the streams, including arts, theatre, seafaring, in all the domains. The Elizabethan era became the golden era of England. And the typical Renaissance spirit and quest for learning and exploring and getting the maximum can be seen in Dr. Faustus, all encompassed into one. That is Faustus' field. So that's where that play becomes deeply significant. And understanding Christopher Marlowe completely would also help you understand and appreciate uh, Shakespeare a bit, because there is always this. Because we have time, I would also discuss a little bit about William Shakespeare. There is this thing that you can go back and Google. There is this thing called putative theories of Shakespeare. What do you mean by the putative theories? Example, I'm sure you may all be learning Shakespeare from your school days. And at least in your school days, I can imagine a scenario where you spelt him wrong. You would have written Shakespeare's spelling as something else. Maybe you would have written Sphere, and the teacher would have penalized you for that spelling mistake. Maybe she would have beaten you for writing the wrong answer. And she would have cautioned you to work on your spellings. But then, the most interesting part is that historically, there is still no evidence as to a proper spelling of Shakespeare. There are plenty of legal documents which has William Shakespeare in it with different spellings, including the ones that you may have got wrong. So speaking about William Shakespeare, there is this dilemma, there is this question which always surfaces. Did he really exist? Was there a William Shakespeare? There are no real evidences proving that a man called William Shakespeare existed, born and brought up in Stratford-upon-Avon. So that leads to the putative theories of Shakespeare. There are theories which claim, there are two types of theories in that sense, if we try to classify. There are theories which says that Shakespeare did not exist. Someone else wrote in the disguise of a pen name that is William Shakespeare. And that theory accounts to so many people, including Sir Francis Bacon, Earl of Warwick, and so on and on and on. Then the second sort of theory states that there was a guy called William Shakespeare, but he was not that talented. So people who couldn't come into the forefront and write and become popular used him as a string and wrote in that name. The most common person pointed out as Shakespeare, as per that argument, is none other than Queen Elizabeth. There are arguments which say that Queen Elizabeth was a literary genius, but because she could not write, being a queen, and perform plays of that sort, she wrote the plays and she kept it in Shakespeare's shoulders. But then the first theory is a bit more prominent. It ranges from, as I told you, from Francis Bacon to the Earl to so many people. And in that legacy also falls Christopher Marlowe. And that's considered to be one of the most logical arguments for saying Shakespeare never existed. Because most of the plays of William Shakespeare, by that I mean the best plays of Shakespeare, tragedies in particular, were written after 1593. Now, 1593 is a landmark year because in 1593, Christopher Marlowe was in a pub, a tavern, and he was caught in a fight and he stabbed somebody and he was stabbed to death. Christopher Marlowe died in the year 1593 in a brawl happened in a pub. So there are people who say that because he was not that popular among the court and because he felt that he'll be arrested at some point of time and being sent to Tower. Being sent to Tower back then meant you won't see light ever after in your life. You will die in the prison. So because he was scared of that, Christopher Marlowe feigned his death. He pretended his death. And he lived in disguise as William Shakespeare. There are so many people who draw parallels between the language of Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare. And that's where that argument comes. Christopher Marlowe was a university wit. William Shakespeare has never gone to universities. But the language of Shakespeare resembles that of a university wit, or much better than that. So there are so many people who say that Christopher Marlowe is a university with, is William Shakespeare in disguise. And on a lighter note, there is another theory which all the Malayalis can be happy about, just in case it's proven right. There is a person called what Sudarshan? I forgot the name of him. There is a guy called Sudarshan who has claimed this theory, putative theory of Shakespeare. It's still there in the Stanford Circle. He has claimed that William Shakespeare is a Malayali. He says that in Kerala there was a guy called Seshadri Iyer, and the Seshadri Iyer, due to some problems, Kallavandi Vidichu Kapalugari, he landed in England. And because he was starving, the poor guy didn't have any way to make a living. He started writing plays. He initially started helping playwrights by scribbling their plays, and later he started writing plays. And because the Englanders' tongue could not be twisted to pronounce Sheshadri Iyer, in due course of time, them calling him Sheshadri Iyer, he later ended up being Shakespeare. And Sudarshan also argues that he later married a Christian lady, and he christened his name as Willie or William, and he adopted the name Shakespeare because the Westerners are popular with that, because they can't call him Sheshadri Iyer. So he christened his name or rechristened his name as William Shakespeare. If this be proved at some point of time, imagine the sort of pride that we Malayalis would relish in. അല്ലേത്തന്നെ നമുക്ക് അഹങ്കാരത്തിന് ഒരു കുറവുമില്ല. ഷേക്സ്പിയർ നമ്മുടെ ചോരയാണെന്നും കൂടെ തിരിച്ചറിഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മുടെ അഹങ്കാരത്തിന് കൈയും കണക്കും ഉണ്ടാകും. All right, so jokes apart, that's an overview to the inception of theatre, both global and British. I generally do this as a package. We have a 4-hour session offline. So what I do is I begin with the evolution. I continue to, from William Shakespeare, I go to Ben Jonson, comedy of humors, then comedy of manners, then I take it to sentimental comedy, heroic plays, then I take it to the theatre of the absurd and modern plays, and I somewhat end it up. But then because we don't have that time and it will be criminal to deal with that overview, I won't do that here. But I've given you an overview which would help you appreciate your blocks better. You go back to your blocks, block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4. You will be able to make some sense with whatever I have given you as an overview. Especially concepts of Aristotle would come in handy while assessing the plays of Marlowe as well as Shakespeare. So if possible, go back. You can download the MEG materials easily from the app. So go download MEG5 materials and read block 1 and block 2 if you can. So theories and concepts of Aristotle in particular would come in handy to you. So as I promised you before, we have close to 10-14 minutes for an open session. If you have any queries, if you want to generate a discussion on anything that I missed out, the floor is declared open. And I always believe these last 10 minutes to be the significant part of my sessions, more than the 1.5 hours that I deal with you. These last 10 minutes are much good because we get to know each other more. Discussion happens, monotony is broken, and there's a lot of sharing happen. So feel free to open up, unmute yourself, and speak. The floor is declared open. Somebody may take the initiative to break the starting trouble. One person asks a question, others feel relieved, and they'll start following the suit. So feel free to start. I hope you are finding my sessions to be useful. I hope you are able to understand or follow what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So the floor is open if you have any queries. Tomorrow, as I told you, we'll be discussing Dr. Faustus. So it will be ideal that you go through the plot or the summary of the story before you come to the class so that you will be able to follow what I say. We'll discuss Faustus in detail. From both perspectives,
I
from
have
the
a doubt.
assignment. Yes, Varsha, please.
As you said that the plays are divided in 3, such as miracle, mystery, and morality plays.
Yep.
So is there any subdivision such as mainly the dramas in Britain is such as comedy and tragedy? So all the 3 have any subdivision such as comedy and tragedy, of its own?
Okay, I think thank you, Asha. Thank you for asking that question. But I think you've just gotten what I said wrong. ഞാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചത് മൂന്ന് ഡിവിഷനേ ഉള്ളൂ എന്നല്ല കേട്ടോ. Any division for that sake is based on certain convenience. Take the case of neoclassical period, for instance. If you look at that 17th century, that is between say 1640 to 1660, or say 1640 to 1700 for that sake, there are plenty of tags that comes along with that period. There is a tag like neoclassical period. There is a tag like restoration period. And there is a tag like age of Pope, age of Dryden, age of Johnson, age of Swift, and so on. There is a tag like age of satire. So it's based on which way you look at that. It is about which way you look at that and how you would like to divide it. While speaking about the origins of drama in Britain, and when you speak about vernacular plays, that's when this tripartition comes: miracle, mystery, and the morality plays. But at the same time, when you take the case of genres, 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 then you say tragedy and comedy. That's a different thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I understand, Jijimol, that you are from different background, so you may be missing literature terms. That's why I always advise you. That's why I've given you this wide list of books. You go to BOK, download that, read that. If not, any other buddhimutanengil, at least go to BOK and download the Glossary of Literary Terms by M.H. Abrahams. I repeat the name once again, just in case you are not familiar with this. Glossary of Literary Terms by M.H. Abrahams. Its latest edition is available in BOK. It familiarizes you with various concepts in literature. And without knowing this concept, it's difficult to complete the 2-year course. So please go through those terminologies given in M.H. Abrahams. Take 2 years, read those terms, be familiar with those terms, and you can apply it as and when and where it is required. Especially in MEG 3, you will need these terms. While studying the rise of the novel, for instance, you'll have to be familiar with a lot of technical terms: realism, naturalism, what do you call what is it called? Epistle format, epistolary novels. Yeah, epistolary novels. So there are plenty of technical terminology coming in, especially in MEG 3. So please go through M.H. Abrahams' glossary. That will give you a wonderful idea. And a lot of people have this popular misconception that glossary means M.H. Abrahams. No, you can find plenty of books which introduce critical terms. For instance, there is a book by late Dr. Madhukar Rao. It's available in online sites to buy if you want to. Dr. Madhukar Rao has written a book called Literary Salad. It is a must read for any literature enthusiast. It's like M.H. terms. And unlike other people, he tells a lot of new things about these concepts, which we are not aware of. So if you can, please go back and read Dr. Madhukar Rao's Literary Salad. It's available in the public domain. Well, this class is open for anybody, Tanvi. There is no restriction that at least I would like to keep. And generally, as a matter of fact, the sessions are arranged for students of July 2020 and Jan 2021. Both. But again, there are so many alumni who keep coming back to my classes. There are people who, because you share links with them, who come to the classes. I don't really verify that too much. They may be outsiders. Like I tell you, I can see 85 people in the house. There'll be 70 people marking attendance, which means there are people from outside. But I don't keep a track of that. As long as people are interested to learn, what's the purpose of me learning? That's a life purpose, you know. So I don't mind sharing what I know with anybody who would like to spend their 2 hours with me. I'm rather happy. Yeah,
Sir.
somebody was asking something.
Yeah,
Sir,
sir,
can we
this is
put
Jennifer here. I just wanted to ask you if you can
Yes,
share
Jennifer.
your mobile number. We can
Uh-huh.
add you along as an admin in the group, IGNOUS group, where only the teachers are the admin.
I understand, but Jennifer, the reason I have told you yesterday, initially I've been through these things, and first of all, I'm not a mobile savvy person. It's not that I take a class, I mean, I take my mobile when I get a call during the class, I agree. But generally, I keep that gadget away as much as I can because I'm not that comfortable with that gadget. Even though I know how to use it, I don't want to be addicted to my mobile phone. One. And the problem with giving my number is that I'll get thousands of calls every single day asking simpler doubts. I think whatever doubts you have, we can, discuss that in the class. Number one, and number two, it's a bit irritating when you get calls at odd hours. I get call at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, and there are times when sometimes I'll be sick and I'll be deeply into sleep, and even my family members wake up. I have old parents, and of course my mom passed away last July, but my dad is 83, and when I get calls at 3:30 or 4 o'clock, it is a bit difficult for me to take it lightly, and I end up saying something, and then they would write to the RC saying the academic counselor sweared at us. You call me at 3:30. What else would I do? And the call would be like, I have a toothache today, so I won't be able to attend the class. Is it okay? Oh, come on, you have a toothache. You know what's the status of the toothache. At 3:30, you are calling me and asking, should I come to the class? So I do get, I'm fed up with that sort of absurdities. So that's why I say, if you have queries, I'm always appreciative of that. We have this last 10 to 15 minutes to address those queries. Or if you think you need to really ask something which you can't ask in a public platform, I'm again sharing my mail ID with you. You can mail to me at any point of time. I look at my mails regularly and I'd mail you prompt.
No, this was
Yesterday,
because we wanted to we whenever you share a link for the
yeah,
classes, so it will
yeah,
be very easily accessible to those who are
yeah,
there that
yeah.
want to
I
improve.
understand the intention, Jennifer. I appreciate that. So what I can tell you is, it's my humble request to you. One, keep me away from those groups. Two, I share all those links in the class in the chat box. Any of you can mediate and copy those links and share it in the groups. I'm not stopping anybody from sharing any of these materials. And even though I say I don't have any hold in this recording part and I can't share the link with you, I am also aware of the fact that you can screen record my sessions. If you have a screen recorder, you can record my sessions and share it with anybody you like. I'm not going to come with a copyright issue, or I'm not going to file a lawsuit with you. As long as learning happens, as long as people, their knowledge domain improves, I'm happy to help anybody for it. But there is a personal private space which needs to be respected as well. And I always prefer that, because my
Okay.
personal space is something I always value a lot. Even though I like you all, I treat you as a family. We are all a family. But then that time has to be taken care of.
Okay, sir, we understand. Thank you.
Yep. Satyendra, you had a question, I suppose.
Sir, can we put uh, Dr. Foster as a Senecan play or morality play?
We'll discuss that tomorrow. Don't worry. We are going to discuss various facets of Dr. Faustus. It's not
Okay,
only
sir.
about whether it's Senecan or morality. There could be also questions of whether he is heroic, whether he's stupid. Is there a biblical element to it? Is that a Renaissance hero? There are plenty of facets to Dr. Faustus. And I'll try to cover as many as I can in the 2 hours tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Yes,
could
please.
you, sir, could you please say something more about the Peloponnesian War? Peloponnesian Wars?
Peloponnesian Wars were a long series of wars that happened in Greece, and you may go back and read Google for that. You don't need me to speak about history. But then the significance of Peloponnesian War, unlike, I mean, as it is in the case of any war, is that it is a hindrance to the growth of any civilization. If you are held in a lifelong struggle with your neighbors or within yourselves or within other countries, war is always detrimental to economical, political, and societal growth of any nation. And the subjects of the after effects of war are common people, and to be more specific, women. Ladies are mostly affected by the immediate after effects of war. So Lysistrata is a play which takes a satirical look at that. All right, Sony Abraham, you had a question?
Sir,
Yes, please.
can you please help us to prepare for the exam? Don't feel bad because I'm not a literary student. And also, if you help me, I think there will be exam on 15th July, isn't it? If it is not postponed. So can you please help us how to prepare for the exam?
Uh,
How to read? Should I read the story full, or should I read the notes? Which one gives more preference like that?
Okay. Sony, there is no one shortcut as far as exams are concerned. And there is no one single tip I can give you either. If I tell you read the entire textbooks, maybe you would not end up writing the exams even in 5 years allotted to you. But there are people who simply read Wikipedia summary and go to the exam and score 70 marks. So it's about how equipped you are, what's your language strength, and how well you can put the ideas into paper in those 3 hours of the exams. So there is no one single shortcut. But yes, maybe while we get to the fag end of our sessions, that is in the last 3 or 4 classes, as and when I get time, I definitely discuss with you how to approach your exams. Even while I discuss the topics, I'll be telling you what to expect and how to write. The best
Okay,
tip that I can give you is go back to the previous year question papers. It is available in Google. If you go to the IGNOU
okay,
website, you I think from 2008 onwards, all the question papers are available for you to download. And when you download and go through that, you will observe that most of the questions are repetitive. They only ask from a limited range. So if you practice writing those answers every day, by some point of time, you would be familiar with all the questions and the answers. That's the simplest way that I can give you how to prepare for your exams.
okay, sir. Thank
And
you.
yeah, and
Okay,
within my limitations, I'll definitely try to help you, Sony.
okay. I think you will discuss all the dramas in these classes. Is it okay?
I'll try to, Sony. I'm not sure how
Oh,
many plays I'll be able to cover because we get
okay.
2 hours and 8 more sessions are left. Maybe 5 to 6 plays I think would go in those times. I'm not sure if I'll be able to cover all the 10 plays, and that's not practical either. And we are not expected to do that either. I told you in the first class, academic counseling sessions are meant for doubt clearance, not for lecturing. But because I understand that most of you are a little bit behind in literature because most of you are from varied backgrounds and all, we venture out in giving you the summary or the analysis part. But otherwise, we are not even expected to do that. But I'll try to complete, say, 5 to 6 to 7 plays. That's all that I can say as of now.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. And Shaila Priya, I just saw your question in the chat. The answer is the same. The style of study is individualistic. If you can read the entire play, well and good. If you can read the paraphrased version, even better. If you read the summary and you think you can do well, all the best to you. But the problem with reading the summary is that you may miss a lot of things. So sometimes a critical reading is required. That's where the Routledge Critical Series or Cambridge edition or Bloom's Critical Editions would help. Another thing I missed out is there is a series called No Fear Shakespeare. Again, it's available in BOK as well. No Fear Shakespeare is simple paraphrase of all Shakespearean plays, including Hamlet and Midsummer Night's Dream. So you can go back and download the No Fear Shakespeare series. And I had told you yesterday regarding exams, fees, and other things. Please contact your regional center or study center. I have no clue, but my common sense does not let me believe that there will be an exam anytime before next August or September, given how COVID is spreading of late. I don't think anybody with some human brain would dare to conduct an exam before August. That'll only cause a huge catastrophe, which I don't think they'll do. Now that they have learned a lesson from part one, I don't think they will want to have a third corona wave anytime soon. And there are also discussions, which you may also have heard, that you'd be given marks on the basis of your assignment and declared all pass if you have passed the assignment for your first year. So that's an exciting prospect. You may not have to write the exam. This is a saying, I can't be sure about it, but this is a hearsay, an exciting hearsay nonetheless. If it happens, blessed be thee. And I don't have the email address of anybody, but then I had given you the number of Dr. Prema. You can talk to Dr. Prema, or like Anju said, you can mediate through Anju or someone else and take your queries to her. I'll also ask Dr. Prema to log in on any of these days for 5 or 10 minutes so that you can ask her whatever you want to. And yeah, regarding the writing style, the standard of English, The only thing I'd like to tell you is you know where you stand, right? If you can't write a paragraph without spelling mistakes, is there any point in me saying you should write like Shashi Tharoor? So eventually what you would end up doing is you would copy from somewhere. And even in that passage, there will be plenty of spelling mistakes. That won't help you. So what I would say is whatever language you have, use your language and write. So what happens when you use your language and write? You get to improve your writing skills. You tend to flourish your writing skills. And there are plenty of MOOC courses on offer. If you go to sites like Future Learn or sites like Udemy or sites like Coursera or sites like Swayam, which is a central government site, or edX. Yeah, I forgot edX. edX.org. There are plenty of sites which help you to improve your English grammar, writing skills, academic writing, and so on. So go enroll to some courses, practice writing. The more you write, the better your writing styles will become. It will flourish for sure. So there is no standard that I can say. Though ideally, a good vocabulary and a good writing style is appreciated. It's a delight for us to read assignments which are well written. But if you don't have that, you need not panic. Try to have a constructive approach towards that thought. All right. Maybe we'll discuss more in the upcoming classes. We are running out of time, already 5 minutes over the time. So thank you so much. See you all tomorrow. We'll discuss Dr. Faustus. And as and when we get time, Shanti ji, I promise you, and Shivapriya ji, I promise you that tomorrow we'll discuss some tips to writing as well. So thank you so much, guys, for your patience. See you tomorrow.